Public Art Commission regular meeting of June 16th, 2022. Welcome. Thank you all for being here. We're going to start off tonight with our call to order and roll call. And we just did our call to order and now it's roll call. So I'm going to start with Commissioner Miyagi.
Here.
Commissioner Shen, thank you for being in the room.
Present.
And Commissioner Gordon.
Here.
And Chair Taylor is here. Thank you. Any agenda changes, additions, deletions?
There are none.
Okay, next we have any public comments?
Anyone from the public wishing to speak to an item not on the agenda this evening, please raise your hand virtually, and I see no one in the room.
There's nobody virtually present.
Great, so we'll move forward. Thank you. Next, we'll do the approval of minutes for May 19th, 2022. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
I can second.
Thank you. And our roll call, Commissioner Miyagi.
Yes.
Commissioner Shen. We need your audio.
Yes.
And Commissioner Gordon.
Yes.
And Chair Taylor, yes. Next, we have city official comments.
Yes. Hi. Good evening, commissioners. I also wanted to welcome Vice Mayor Koo, who has joined us this evening. Thank you for coming. We just have a couple of quick items we wanted to update the commissioners on. June 4th was an amazing Open Studios event at Coverly. There were hundreds of people who came through. Artists opened their studios. We also arranged some partnerships with a number of the nonprofits and dance organizations there. So they had performances in U7. And so it brought a whole new audience into the artist studios, as well as giving great exposure to some of the nonprofits there at Coverly. So it was really a greatly successful event. I have to give a shout out to our staff member, Denise Laxon DeZazzo, who set all of that up. And also to keep an eye out on your calendars for November 4th. That will be an even larger Open Studios event. It is their annual Open Studios. And we'll hopefully be arranging similar partnerships with nonprofits for ancillary programming. So, so that's it for Open Studios. On another note, I just wanted to welcome our new public art intern, Kelsey Ilinsky, who started this week. She will be with us this summer. She just graduated from Santa Clara University as an art history major and a psychology major. She has interned and currently works at the DCC Museum and is very interested in learning about the unique field of public art. So she will be working with us on preparations for code art, as well as a number of our collection items, helping Nadia with that, and some interesting odds and ends as well over the course of the summer. So we're looking forward to that. And that's it for staff comments.
Thank you, Elise. We'll get started now with our action items. First is our adoption of resolution.
This is simply the repeat of what the commission has adopted at the beginning of each of these meetings to allow for virtual participation by the commissioners.
Great. Can I get a motion?
I move.
Second?
I second.
And roll call, Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
Commissioner Miyagi,
Yes.
and Commissioner Shen. And Chair Taylor, yes. Thank you. Okay, next action item is Charleston or Estradaro Transit Corridor.
And we have a few visuals available to remind the commissioners and any members of the public what this project entails. So give us just a second to pull those visuals up. But this is artwork, as you may recall, along the Charleston or Estradaro corridor, which is an extremely busy and important corridor through Palo Alto. It links a number of schools and communities, is heavily trafficked by both bikes, pedestrians, and vehicles. Susan Zoccola was selected as the artist for this project some time ago. The commission and the council did approve an extension to her contract and in addition to it as costs escalated. She's in fabrication at this point and scheduled to install in August. So here is a little bit of background on the inspiration behind the shapes that she chose to work with in that corridor after having meetings with community stakeholders on the project and understanding that a lot of the landscaping there was about water management. And so she really liked this idea of the diatom. And the diatom also happens to look a lot like a bicycle wheel. And seeing how many bicycles were flowing through on a daily basis with all the children going to and from the various schools, it made sense to really play with that shape. So here is just revisiting the timeline, and I'm not going to go through reading all of it at this point, but we are just about at the finish line with this project, which is very, very exciting. And so, as I mentioned earlier, we're looking to install in August. And here are some of the renderings. Keep in mind, these are conceptual renderings. So it does look like the artwork is much closer to the lane of traffic than it is. But it just gives you a sense of the colors and the movement of the 5 locations where the various sculptures will be placed throughout the corridor. And generally, we are able to, in these projects with Public Works, we were able to partner with them and capitalize on existing road closures already with their existing work and have the artwork installed at that time. Because of the way this project has been phased and how busy that corridor is, we were unable to capitalize on that, and Public Works can't just do this strictly as a favor. So we need to make separate arrangements for the traffic control plans and the staffing to manage that as we install these sculptures. So the estimate for that from BATS is $5,330 for the traffic control measures and the staffing. And if there are any questions, please let me know.
Thank you, Elise. Fellow commissioners, any
Yeah,
comments?
I was hoping to better understand what the amount is comprised of. Is it over a period of time for installation, the breakdown is?
Yes, so some of it is actually the development of the plan that has to go to our traffic department for approval, as well as actually having physical trucks, cones, lane closure signage as our truck and the installation moves along that corridor. So they will have to reopen a lane, move forward, close a lane, staff it, have flaggers there to make sure that it's safe for everyone. We're hopeful we can get it done in a day. Vice Mayor Koo, did you have a question?
Commissioner Shen asked my question.
Okay. We try to be as efficient as possible.
I have a question about the artwork.
Mhm.
Is it static or is it moving?
That is a wonderful question. While Susan would love to have made them kinetic, as you probably know, kinetic sculptures come with a lot more challenges as far as safety issues and maintenance issues. So the play of the various wheels to one another as you move by it gives it the illusion of movement, but they are in fact static.
All right, it'd have been really nice if they were kinetic, but I can understand people driving by and seeing those things twirling about, and it could be distracting, but
Yep.
yeah, they're really nice. Thank you.
Else? Although I will say it would be nice to save a little bit of money. I do appreciate the fact that Elise and Nadia have tried to connect the road closure with another maintenance project, but unfortunately that couldn't happen this time. So I'm going to say I think we should. I would like to move.
Actually, I
the
have one more
approval.
question.
Yeah, but yeah, go ahead.
The installation itself, since it involves navigating around moving traffic, do we have insurance coverage to sort of protect and mitigate against any potential risk or damage that could occur during the installation process?
Absolutely. That's a standard requirement of any of the contractors that we work for or work with. Good question.
Anybody else? That was a good question, Commissioner Shen. I was just going to go on ahead and approve funding in the amount of a motion to approve funding in the amount of up to $5,330 for traffic control measures during the installation of permanent artwork by Susan Zacola.
Second,
Okay, thank you. And we need our roll call. Commissioner Shen. I can't hear your speaker, Commissioner Shen.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Miyagi,
yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
and Chair Taylor, yes. Okay, wonderful. And our last agenda item for tonight is Midtown Poetry Murals.
There we go.
We
do have a presentation we will put up for that item. And any members of the public wishing to speak to the item may do so after the staff presentation. And you may please raise your hands and let us know. So Midtown Murals, Nadia's pulling up the presentation now. Hopefully you've had a chance to review the staff report to get some updates. Since the last time we spoke on this item, as you all know, this came up almost a year ago where the property owner had contacted us and said, hey, we've noticed some of these murals have deteriorated a certain amount. Is there a way that something can be done? We're open to either a new artwork or refurbishing this one. So we've gone back and forth to the commission a couple of times now and gathered some more information. And so hopefully at this point, the commission has enough information to make a decision on this item. So let's go to our next slide. So just to give you a sense of where we're talking about in Midtown, this is the Poetry Wall, which is on the side of Como Esta Taqueria. It is right next to the Baskin Robbins there in Midtown. And then we thought we'd also throw in a few of the other Midtown artworks. As you can see, there are a few artworks in Midtown. There are not a lot, which is part of the reason the Midtown residents hold these so that they're so important to them. So that's certainly understandable. One of the challenges with the Poetry Walls mural, as opposed to The Inner Life of Teenagers by Elizabeth Latta, is the Poetry Wall mural is south facing and gets a lot more sun exposure. And the Elizabeth Latta mural is north facing and has a lot more sun coverage. And so it has not suffered the same kind of deterioration since it was commissioned. So let's move to the next one. So a brief history of the project. It was initiated in 22, intended to be a temporary project on that wall. So there were 6 finalists. And the idea was that the first place finalist would be painted on the wall, and that the 5 second place poets would be placed temporarily on a type of vinyl or similar. When the estimates came back for the vinyl, the Public Art Commission decided that that was rather expensive and decided to go ahead and have them all painted on the wall by a contractor. So there were a couple of public art commissioners at the time who actually did the design for it, did the layout, and then had a third-party contractor paint this on the walls. It was funded by the Public Art Commission for $6,250, and there was a contribution by Village Properties for $3,000 was the original commission. Fast forward to 2010, and there was severe discoloration and deterioration reported on the project. In 2012, it was repainted for a little over $10,000. In 2016, when we had ARG Art Conservators do a condition assessment of all of the murals, we did spend some money to have them assess the Midtown Poetry Wall. And then in 2021, when this latest request came from the property owner, we did have Preservation Arts go have a closer look at this particular project and what some of the challenges were. And that was, you see additional funding there. So here you can see the condition of the wall. There's a lot of discoloration from exposure to UV light, heating and cooling. You know, it gets very, very hot in the sun, and then it gets quite cool at night. And there were also some challenges with the clear coating and some of the previous layers of paint trapping moisture underneath. So we were getting some bubbling and some failures of the top layers of paint. So you'll see that probably in the next slide, which is kind of the gory reel, sorry, but you can see particularly in the upper left corner, one of the original painted, and then you can see the top layer where it was repainted in 2012. So that gives you a sense of what's existing now. The building owners did do some extensive research into their drainage, making sure there was nothing coming down into the wall from the roof line or some sort of drainage issue. They did inspections inside the businesses of the interior of the wall to make sure, for instance, there's not like a refrigeration unit inside leaking water into the wall or anything of that nature. It was ultimately determined that it's the paint that was initially used for this project that is bubbling, and that a paint would be needed that could do a little more breathing and adjustment with the wall itself. So moving forward, the property owner did get an estimate for the stabilization and priming of the wall, which would essentially mean going in and stripping off everything that's there from the mural, cleaning it up, patching the wall, putting a base coat on it so it matches the rest of it so that the new surface is nice and clean. So that's about $10,580. And then repainting the mural, there are a couple of options here for the commission to consider. Repainting the mural, and we got four quotes. They were all very close in range, between just under $15,000 and just under $18,000. And we estimate that that would have a life cycle of probably 7 to 10 years. The other option could be to reproduce the mural in adhesive aluminum in the current scale, which would be about $12,500. And the lifespan for that, I think it says 2 to 3 years, but with that sun, I would say 2 years is probably the most we can expect to get out of it. So essentially, the total funding needed to do this would be $23,000 to $28,500. I think it's important to keep in mind that if these murals remain within the collection and the commission decides to refurbish them as a maintenance item, that would be the entire maintenance budget for next year. So there would be nothing for the Roth Building, Arnautov's, for Brilliance, for other regular maintenance of the projects. So what staff has done is come forward with a proposal based on our previous conversations with the commission about whether or not these projects belong in our collection, to go ahead and go through with the legal proceeding to deaccession them, meaning legally remove them from our collection, but go ahead and refurbish them as a temporary project. So the commission may decide on the adhesive version or to repaint them. And that would give staff time to enter in a conversation with the Midtown residents and with the property owners about a potential future mural project there that could engage the Midtown residents. So that's what we're coming forward with this evening. And we're happy to entertain any questions you may have.
Thank you, Elise. Do we have any members of the public that wish to speak?
Yes, we currently have one hand raised.
Wonderful. Okay, we have, we're going to give whoever would like to speak 3 minutes.
Just 1 second, I will set up the timer.
Welcome, Annette. Can you hear us?
Think so. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. Well, I would come down in person, but I'm actually out of town. So, speaking for, and you've received considerable emails from me. So, speaking for the Midtown neighborhood, I ask that you reject the staff recommendations and vote to repair or restore the Midtown Poetry Wall. It is beloved and unique. I don't remember at the beginning of the project that it was only to be temporary. That was not part of my memory. So don't let it decay any further and don't remove it. So I did read the staff report and agreed with everything that Elise said. There are a lot of technical challenges and costs to refurbish it. But if you vote to de-accession it and not keep it, the commission is saying it's all about money and it's easier and more fun to create something new, even temporary art, rather than fix what we have. And I'd be willing to go back to council and ask for more money. 2, you're saying that Midtown, this part of town, is not important. And 3, you receive considerable emails from the community and the many voices who took the time to write and ask for the art to be retained. I would like to work together to figure out a way to preserve this important part of Midtown's history. So in closing, other people have said it better than I, so I'd like to read from 2 letters you might not have received. The first one from Andrea Saliba. I believe this is an important piece of public art that represents a time in history when Palo Alto was a bit more innocent. I feel strongly that the nominal amount to restore this beautiful artwork done by community members would be very worthwhile and would cost significantly less than some of the more recent public art projects. Why only invest in new? Is our history not worth investment? As our community ages, it's very comforting to those of us who have lived here a long time and have seen our city change to keep this significant public artwork alive. And another fast comment from Alexis Hamilton Green. It makes what would otherwise be a barren wall something special. Our city needs art and beauty in south of Oregon as much as we need art on the north side of town. So let's find a way to keep the mural, which is totally unique and an important part of our history. Thank you.
Thank you, Annette.
I think that concludes our public speakers.
Okay, so should we open up to a larger conversation? Thank you. I just want to reiterate, and Elise, please confirm that the money, if we decided to de-accession the piece today, that the money that we would have spent on repairing it is coming out of our maintenance budget. It's not going to be used for new public art or temporary art. So I just want to make that clear. Is that correct, Elise?
If we were to keep them in the collection and use this for maintenance, that would use the entirety of our maintenance budget. By restoring it as a temporary project, we can use CIP funds for that.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's a separate budget. So I just want to make sure that the maintenance, in my opinion, is very important. We have a lot of pieces that have been in our collection for a long time, and they need maintenance as well. And I will also say personally, I do believe that the piece is a beautiful piece, and I really value all the comments that have come in about how important it is to the community. And I want you to know that I am not trying to take away the value. I'm from Palo Alto. I understand the importance of community. I think we all do. So to me, this conversation is not about community. It's about the funds and the maintenance of the piece. And so I'm going to open it up to my fellow commissioners to have a conversation. And Vice Chair Koo, if you have any comments, you're more than welcome to share them as well. So.
Actually, Elise have some questions. So the proposal, the recommendation is to initiate the accession. And the timeline for that is once we initiate that, the decision will be in October. And after you initiate it, when does the restoration, the proposed temporary restoration start?
That's an excellent question. We would need to complete the deaccession before we're going to remove it from the wall and then reintroduce the piece as a temporary project. So it would be October. Because the deaccession takes 90 days. So we cannot remove the artwork before 90 days after the initiation of the deaccession.
Okay, and can you elaborate on, and I understand that staff is supposed to come back on the, will return to PAC to request approval of fund for reproduction of the mural as temporary artwork. Can you explain what that means?
Yes, so the commission's been offered a couple of options this evening. Once we go through the deaccession, so if the commission votes to initiate the deaccession process this evening, all of the poets who have their work shown on the wall will be adequately notified.
Yep.
We go through all the public noticing. Members of the public may write letters to the commission as they have so far. And then the commission would come back after 3 months to make a final decision as to whether or not to deaccession it.
Right.
Once that deaccession is complete,
Yep.
then we can move ahead with stripping and prepping the wall. And then the commission can decide either to reproduce this painted, knowing that it will be temporary, long-term temporary of 7 to 10 years,
Oh, I
or
see.
reproduced in aluminum in 2 to 3 years. But it would give enough time for staff and the commission and Midtown residents and the property owner to initiate conversations about what might go there in the future.
I see. So the 14,000 or the 7 to 10 year solution or the 2 to 3 year solution, those are the two proposals for the temporary.
Yes,
Got it. Okay.
that would be for the temporary artwork on top of the prepping the wall. So the overall numbers still come out to the, what is it, 23 to 25? Yes.
Yeah. And that's just, okay, thank you for clarifying that. That makes a difference. Thank you, Commissioner Shen, for asking the question, and Elise for clarifying.
So that money is the money that we would spend if the decision is to initiate the accession.
So the funds, if the commission decides to deaccession the Midtown Poetry Wall and reproduce it as a temporary artwork, we can utilize CIP funds for that. Generally, CIP funds cannot be used for the maintenance of existing artwork. So if the commission decides not to deaccession the artwork, but to restore it, that would come out of our $30,000 maintenance allocation for next year.
Okay, I think what confuses me is the step and cost to repair the mural. When I read that, that is the continue to repair without the accession. But you're saying this is also the temporary fix if we go the route of the accession. So we're spending this money, it's just coming out of different pockets.
Essentially, yes.
Okay.
The difference being that legally we have taken these out of our collection and they become temporary artworks, but they will be long-term temporary and you are essentially repainting them.
And when you, and long-term temporary, in this case, we've been given two options. One is the 7 to 10 year option. The other is the 2-year option. And at that time, we can gather Midtown, the Midtown community, and create another artwork, either for that particular space or somewhere else in Midtown. Is that correct?
I would hesitate to give up the great partnership we have with the property owner there, who is very amenable to us commissioning artwork there. So I think it would be great to explore more artwork in Midtown, but I would hesitate to walk away from that wall because it is an iconic space and we do have this existing partnership with that owner.
Okay, I understand. Okay, but that buys time, that investment of either repainting or putting it on, I'm looking at aluminum, not bio, aluminum, gives us the flexibility to work with that property owner and also Midtown residents to create something new for that space if desired, correct?
Absolutely. It could be a new opportunity to engage Midtown residents in the creation of a new artwork that could be long-term temporary as well.
Got it.
Thank you.
And just to clarify, and for the response I think we've been receiving from the public, there's concern about deaccession. But the timing, and this is the reason why I wanted to focus on this, even if we were to initiate, the temporary solution means repairing it the same way that you would without deaccession. And the solution would still be to see either a replica of it or repainting of it that will last somewhere between 2 years to 10 years.
That's correct. Essentially, the only difference between refurbishing this and going with the deaccession is the legally deaccessioning the project. Both ways, you would be refurbishing the mural.
Yeah. Okay. So this is quite different from the prior deaccession, which is you're actually removing it. And so within 6 months or whatever, we no longer see that piece except in some, memorial form, a photocopy of it or something like that. But in this particular situation, it's really being restored or repainted. And it would still be there depending on the options we choose, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So it's really an accounting issue.
This is what staff came up with that felt like the best path forward.
Yeah, I have a question. So tonight, are we voting to deaccession the piece? And then in 3 months, we come back and do the final vote on it after all the public comment and all that is done. And as a second part of that we do the long-term temporary to recreate after it's being deaccessioned from the collection. Then we do the long-term temporary to recreate it? Or do we have a third option of doing a completely new project?
That's a great question. The recommendation this evening is to initiate the deaccession and move ahead with the intent to recreate this as a temporary project. You do raise a good point that yes, there could be the potential to deaccession it and go into the creation of a new community project at that site after the October deaccession date. Staff came up with this solution because it gives a little bit more time for the Midtown community and for staff and the property owners to come up with a solution. So there's not a lag time and we don't feel rushed into the creation of something new.
Okay, and then my concern is the money, it could be a 25K to be spent on the temporary project that could go to a new project. And that could be more permanent. Okay, that's what I'm wrestling with in my mind right now.
Commissioner Miyagi, when you say a project that could be more permanent, are you thinking of this particular wall?
Yes, possibly on this wall, but from what the report says, the wall needs to be stabilized, and that can take some time. And then once it gets stabilized, and possibly with new paints and stuff, if it is a mural, it could last longer and be more permanent. I know we had the same problem with the University Avenue tunnel, that we were trying to do something there, and there was some real problems with the wall and the water seepage and that sort of stuff. And as Elise was saying, this is a south-facing wall, so it's getting the brunt of the sun and the weather that comes in.
Yes, I guess that's why I asked, because I'm thinking the location is really a location for temporary art, given the conditions.
Yeah, and one of the things of our master plan is to put art into the neighborhoods, and
Right.
this might be a good opportunity for that.
Agree.
I have two questions. So my first question is regarding the stabilization of the wall. That is something we don't have to do right this minute, right? That's something we can do when we decide what to do after. If we decide to do session and put in a temporary fix or a temporary, we don't have to worry about the stabilization of the wall just yet, right? Because the aluminum shouldn't have that an effect if we chose the aluminum route.
I think the stabilization of
sense?
I think that the stabilization of the wall needs to take place when the mural is removed, regardless of what goes on there. Like, the wall needs to be finished before anything goes on top of it. If we were to for instance, put the aluminum on top of the existing paint that is bubbling, it's going to fail rather quickly because it's not going to really adhere to the wall.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. That was my concern. Okay. The other question I had, I was looking at the timeline again for the mural history, and I was noticing that it doesn't mention, and I apologize if you mentioned this, Elise or Nadia, before, how it actually got accessioned into the collection. Because I know that there was funding from the Art Commission at the time, but it didn't look like it was actually, I didn't see it like it was acquired, by the accession into the collection. So what was that process like, and when did it happen? Just for clarity.
That is a great question. It was, it was quite some time ago before the accession and deaccession policies were more formalized. And so I think essentially when it was painted on the wall, it became part of the collection. So there wasn't a formal decision about accessioning. It's just once it was painted, it became part of the collection.
And then did it have to do with the funding too, that because they gave funding, or it's just, it was a project?
I don't have that level of detail for you. I'm sorry.
No problem. That's okay. I'm just curious, so just for the future, so to have policies in place. Thank you, Elise.
Elise, just to clarify, so if we were to initiate the accession today, the decision will be in October, so 3 months from now. When would you come to the commission on the request for the temporary solution? Is it after October? I think maybe you said that.
Right. I think that's an excellent question. I would like to have that determination and have the groundwork laid for that to happen quite quickly afterwards, so that the wall could get prepped and that we have the files ready and either the painter ready or the aluminum ready to have the replacement, the temporary project, go up rather quickly.
Okay, and just to continue that thought, so it will be sometime, so between now, we're in June, October, so relatively soon thereafter, so let's call it November. That's
right.
A 4-month period, right?
In the commission
period. And I'm just trying to create a timeline where you said that the reason why we wanted a temporary solution is because the public arts would like to have time to socialize with the local community about putting in another piece of artwork. And my query is this original artwork, if I remember correctly, came together relatively quickly. And so is it just inconceivable to have that possibility as option C? Kind of like what Ben is saying. We have the 7 to 10 year restoration plan, or the aluminum plan, or maybe option C, yet another something that would essentially echo the origin of this piece, right? Which came together, it was a light in terms of process. It came together, it had a lot of energy from different organizations and came together quickly. And I'm just wondering if we should not leave that option open so that you guys can start socializing.
I think when the deaccession process is still happening, it would be challenging to enter into those discussions at that time about what's next. So that would be an extremely fast turnaround to create something that's going to be as thoughtful and meaningful as I think the Midtown residents would need to let go of this project.
At least you mentioned with the temporary artwork that you want to move on that very quickly. So does that mean if we make the motion tonight to deaccession and also have that temporary piece go in, that you would immediately start working on that temporary piece and without the clear knowledge that the deaccession may or may not happen?
That's right. I think we would just want to map the road ahead. I don't think we would be calling fabricators and painters next week. But I think we would, by the time the deaccession becomes final, be ready to move rather quickly with the replacement.
What if the motion is made that we only do the deaccession and not the temporary artwork? And come October when it's voted on, and let's say it is deaccession, then you start to work on the temporary or new project. Is that too much of a lag in the timeline for you to do anything?
I do have concerns that the property owner has been waiting for some time to have some sort of resolution to this, and probably having a blank wall there for some time may be challenging. Maybe we could delay the removal. But we could discuss that.
Just to clarify on Ben's question, because when I'm looking at the staff recommendation, it says staff will return to PAC to request approval of fund for reproduction as temporary artwork upon the completion of the deaccession process. So the way I'm understanding it is we initiated, let's say the decision is made to initiate today. The decision is completed in October, and it's upon that decision that's when you will come back and say, this is what we want to do for temporary. That's my understanding. It's not a interim.
Right.
Yeah.
I just felt like it would be helpful to telegraph the Public Art Commission's intention if they move forward with this deaccession.
Vice Mayor Ku?
Thank you. These are really great questions. I just want to understand with temporary art, and in this report, it says long-term. So when you say temporary art, does that mean after the 7 to 10 years? Or if you go the aluminum way, which is only 2-3 years, after those period is over and the artwork needs refreshing and so forth, can that artwork be replaced by something different?
Yes, that is the intent, that it gives some time for refurbishing it one more time And then we can make a plan for something different to occupy that wall.
And when artwork is, in this case, commissioned, is that what it's called?
Yes.
Then that's more like it goes on forever. So is that the two differences between the temporary art and then the ones that are commissioned? The commissioned ones are long, I mean, it doesn't just come off when it is in need of refurbishing and so forth, right?
Excellent question. So all of the artworks, temporary and permanent, are commissioned. It's accessioned. So if it's accessioned into the collection, I know, tricky, but this is essentially a deaccession. So it's removing it from our permanent collection that we are legally obligated to maintain and making it a temporary project, which when it reaches the end of its lifespan, it can be removed without having to go through another legal proceeding. And we can have a plan for a new community engagement project to take place at that site.
Mhm. I see. Okay. And you will be communicating and collaborating with the Midtown residents about this? Because based on what the report that was written and listening to a lot of the residents, the
Mhm.
letters that they wrote in, it sounded like it was something that was done within that community. And it's kind of dear to them. So the communication needs to be quite, has to be done. Yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you. I just wanted to understand the permanent, the temporary art, and then the other one. Thank you.
Of course.
I will say I'm struggling with the same, I think, struggle that Ben was having about deaccessioning and then moving fairly quickly with a decision on a temporary solution, because that's where my brain is going now. But what is that temporary solution? I still don't know. So, is there anybody what would like to make a motion, whatever that motion may be? Or do we want to still keep this discussion going for a few more minutes?
I'll make the motion that we deaccession the Midtown Poetry Murals.
Initiate.
And do we have to do the temporary as part of this motion?
You do not have to. Staff made the recommendation just so that the commission could make their next step intentions known. But if you are unclear on what those next steps are, you may defer that until a later meeting.
Okay, I'm going to withdraw my motion right now and move that we table this item until our next meeting. I think we need a little more discussion on this. It seems, anyway, that's my motion.
Actually, maybe we should clarify. Let me propose something. The way I was kind of thinking about this is it really sounds like an accounting issue, meaning that the proposal to repair, to restore, and or the temporary solution are both the same issue, the same options. We have two options that are essentially the same options. And one is if we deaccession this art piece, the money is coming from a different pocket, and it allows us to preserve the maintenance fund for other projects in our collection. So I think it would benefit the community to understand that the initiation for deaccessioning this particular piece of artwork is not going to deprive the community of seeing this artwork. It will be there, at least under option one will be between 7 to 10 years. Under option two will be between 2 to 3 years. I would recommend that during this time while we're initiating the deaccession, that for staff to communicate and explore options for option C to see if there's any appetite for creating something new, but just to have that conversation. But certainly A and B are on the table. And the act of, or the motion, or maybe even the approval of initiating a deaccession of this piece of art is not taking away resource to maintain and restore this piece of temporary art, which a mural is.
Thank you, Commissioner Shen. I have a question for Commissioner Miyagi, but I also have another kind of issue that I still keep thinking about is the wall itself. That I don't know if I feel like it's our job to refurbish the wall. Not the mural, but the wall itself. I feel like that is not our property. So that's kind of my concern still there. I'm not sure why I feel that way. I think it's just, my understanding is correct, that there is other issues with the wall itself that should be taken care of by the property owner. But if somebody wants to persuade me otherwise, I'm happy to hear. But Ben, if we were to table this, what other kind of conversations would you like to have? Just so we can be thinking about what we should be talking about. Or is there more information that you'd like Elise and Nadia to gather for our next?
Well, I think the third option that has been discussed about a new art project on that wall might be very meaningful discussion that we have, because it seems like if we're going to deaccession the piece, let's deaccession it and try to do something new that's more meaningful possibly on that wall and really get community input into that, instead of putting that same piece back up again, basically, and have it up for 7 to 10 years as a temporary project and just kind of forget about it for a while, and then it'll come up again, and then to put another project up there.
Makes sense.
And I think our funds would be better spent to do something like that than try to refurbish that wall for $25K.
So,
Chair Taylor, I would just
Yeah.
like to clarify briefly, we are not repairing structurally the wall. It is stripping the paint from the mural and the lower layers that have been problematic, trapping moisture in that wall. So we're not making structural repairs to the wall. The owner did all the proper inspections to make sure that the wall itself is structurally sound and there is not water leaking into it.
oh, thank you for clarifying.
I just want to
Okay,
clarify that.
misunderstood. Okay, I think I might have misunderstood that. Thank you. That's helpful. Okay. Maybe I was the only one. I don't know. Thank you. Okay. But Ben, I agree with you. I think that makes sense. And I like that idea. And I know Commissioner Shen had the same kind of thought. I think if I read your thoughts
I
correctly.
guess as a technical point, I'd like to understand, are we able to essentially go out and seek new ideas for a new piece of artwork before deaccessioning this current piece of artwork? Is there a constraint on that?
Technically, no.
Okay.
Generally, we start any art process by meeting with the key stakeholders and gathering information on the site. I think at this point, with the members of the community writing in that they do not want this change, that's going to make it extremely difficult to have a productive conversation about what may take place in the future.
Got it. But if we were to, let's say, initiate the accession, approve the de-accession process, because I think when you initiate, it's just commissioning a study for feasibility or under the various different requirements, come back, approve it in October, and telegraph that, hey, we're at least looking at these two options to continue with a temporary replica of this, and then opening the door that there's option 3, which is, this is going to be removed. It's a matter of timeline. Would that make it more approachable?
I think it might. I'd be curious to hear what the other commissioners think as well.
Was your question, Commissioner Shen, sorry, by notifying the public that we are initiating de-accession, prepare them to talk about an option 3, which is a new artwork. Is that what you're?
Right. And what I'm saying is, we are going to de-accession this, and we're proposing 3 different options, 2 of which are either a replica or an aluminum replica, right? They just have different time horizon to it. And they would have been the solution to repair this art piece even if we did not initiate the de-accession. So
Right.
we're leaving those 2 options on the table and then giving the public another option, right? So people can make that decision that, yes, there's a decision to de-accession this art piece, put up a temporary solution or put out a temporary replica, or maybe that is the timing for when people are considering something new. And maybe that would open up different possibilities in the community's discussion, and also perhaps even invite new voice to this conversation.
Mhm. Okay.
I guess my only concern, I understand and I appreciate your idea. I guess my question would be going back to staff and saying, what does that look like on their end? And, what's the turnaround process?
Yeah. I mean, no matter what, if we initiate de-accession, we are spending the $10,580, correct? Because we have to address this mural now, right? And then there's a slight difference between, not slight, couple $1,000s difference between option 1 and option 2.
Right.
Listening to the public in the letters that I've read, I'm leaning towards option 1 because the cost is similar and it gives us time to work with the community on a new option on that wall that would be temporary artwork, but it gives them 7 years, us 7 years to work with the community to find a solution that suits them in this space. So I guess that's my 2 cents.
Elise, can you just clarify one thing? So it's a little challenging when I hear the word kind of expected life cycle, because what is the expected life? What does that actually mean? Because a lot of times you can look at a mural, a hand painted mural, and you see it and it looks great for a little while, and then it starts to fade a little bit. Then it starts to peel, all these little factors, and it could be weather. I mean, you never know. But when it says expected life cycle, what is expected life cycle? Like, what does that entail? It's not gonna be perfect, obviously, but I don't know if you can specify to us and to everybody listening, what that would actually mean. So I don't want people to think, oh, it's gonna look just like new 5 years later. No, it's gonna have some probably bumps and scratches down the line.
Of course, essentially, it's, the amount of time before it looks like it needs to be either maintained or deaccessioned, where it starts really showing some wear and tear and is not representing our community in a way that we wished it was.
And 2 to 3 years is very different than 7 to 10 years. And we could have a quick turnaround. I mean, like you said, this project came about pretty quickly and the community was behind it and it just really got momentum and was pushed forward. But that doesn't always happen. And sometimes it takes time for to get a consensus in a community and get something new on that wall. So, I don't know.
Commissioner Gordon, besides the life expectancy, why would you choose option 1 over option 2? Besides the life expectancy, you think visually there's something to be said, or is it more just you're looking at the cost and life expectancy?
Really looking at cost and life expectancy. I come from an anodized aluminum background, actually. So I'm kind of an aluminum fan, but I think what the community is asking for, when they say, is our history not worth an investment? They want the same thing. And the same thing is paint on the wall. So that's what I hear Midtown community asking for.
Well said. And if anyone wants to make a motion, feel free to jump in or ask more questions.
Lauren, Commissioner Gordon, let me clarify what I'm hearing from you. Is your recommendation to initiate the accession and combine that with the proposal for a temporary solution for option 1?
Yes, I believe it is.
Okay, so my proposal was to initiate
The accession.
to initiate the deaccession with the current proposals 1 and 2, plus a potential option 3, which is something new, and allowing the staff to use the time to socialize it with the community, because I think we have a very enthusiastic public on this issue. And the fact that there's a possibility of an option 3, that may also invite other voices to the conversation.
Yes, and I understand that, and that could be a great discussion. I'm thinking of what our Chair Taylor brought into the discussion, and does staff have time to do that work? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I hear you. That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll try making the motion again that we deaccession the project with the 3 options that we've discussed, either repainting it for the 7 to 10 year lifetime, or the aluminum for the 2 to 3 year, or an option C, which is a new piece of art that goes into that space.
And I guess with Ben's proposal, there's not a fixed timeline. So while I understand that there is urgency by the property owner to address the current condition, I wonder if we cannot build out a timeline to say, hey, initiating in June, making a decision in October, and maybe build out some type of timeline for public feedback thereafter, to be rolled in thereafter, so we can make a decision on option A, B, and 3. And frankly, if people decide to go with a new piece, that will commence its own time, right? Because it just takes time. So maybe the decision is just variations of restoration or a new opportunity for something else.
Well, and I think that if we do vote for deaccession in October, that weather will play a factor into that because we get into the rainy season. And that could really delay the stabilizing of the wall and that sort of stuff. So it gives us a little extra time to think about what to do on that wall.
Yeah.
So I would like to make a motion suggestion to initiate the deaccession policy. And I do like the idea of 3 options, but the third option, I would like to give Elise and Nadia staff the opportunity to think about what that might entail on their end, and come back with us to us next month, and say, okay, we've been thinking a lot about this, and this is how we would proceed. Because I don't want them to feel like, oh my God, like this is just ridiculous. Why are we even going to do this? Not that they would, they value our opinions, but I want to just make sure that they have the time and they can do it properly, because I don't want them to feel pressured into doing something that they just don't have the bandwidth for, and also don't have the right time to get with stakeholders and talk to people.
Yeah.
And then also too, what would our role be as commissioners? I feel like we should be part of the conversation too, a little bit. I'm happy to be, but I think it would be nice given how much energy the public has put into these kind of conversations about the mural.
Madam Chair, point of order, there was already a motion on the floor that was not voted on.
Correct.
So Ben's motion.
Right.
So Commissioner Miyagi made a motion, I believe, to proceed with the deaccession and to move forward with exploring the 3 options, the 2 temporary and a new temporary option. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And I believe Chair Taylor's supplemental suggestion is just to receive additional feedback on your exploration of option number 3 at next
Correct.
month's meeting. So, I think it's an action item. But I
thank
don't
you.
think it's a decision it's a decision point. Yeah. I second Commissioner Miyagi's motion.
So just a quick point of clarification, Commissioner Miyagi, do you accept the friendly amendment?
Yes.
Okay. So now we can ask for a second, just to keep everyone clear.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you.
I second the motion.
And let's do a roll call. Commissioner Miyagi,
Yes.
Commissioner Shen,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
and Chair Taylor, yes. Okay, thank you, everybody. This was a really great conversation, and thank you for all the input and thoughts and conversation. Okay, next, any commissioner questions, comments, announcements, or future agenda items? Anyone? I will ask, since we're on the topic of murals and temporary murals, I know we were going to talk about temporary murals again at some point. I don't know if you want that to be on an upcoming agenda, but food for thought. No comment? Okay.
Okay.
Okay. We're ready to adjourn. Thank you.